guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. Most of you guys know that I have moved out of state to Georgia. Right before I moved, right after packing, I had to make sure everything in my house was secure. So I wrote down a checklist for every single one of my rooms in my house and made sure that on the last day before we moved my house that all of these things were done. This was to ensure that my house was secure while it was moving, and so that there was nothing that broke inside the house or on the outside of the house. So we have to make sure everything is secure. So I'm going to go through those checklists today and share them with you. Feel free to use them for your move because a lot of these helped me, and in the end I believe one ceiling fan light bulb broke. I think that's a pretty good deal considering it was moved 12 hours away. Let's get started. My business office. My business office was one of the hardest things to pack up. It was one of the biggest things that I had to keep secure because I kept most of the things that were wrapped inside of the cabinets. So we had to make sure that the back cabinets were zip tied. I bought those screw-in screws, but they didn't work, so I ended up using zip ties in order to secure them to my wall cabinets that I use for my business. Zip tying your cabinets, especially if you have products in them, is definitely a good idea because the movement of the truck is going to shift and either go forward or backward and could come out of those cabinets, so you want to make sure they're secure. I had to unfold my work table, take down my printer, and take apart my computer and make sure those were all secure. I had to tape the cabinets that were all around, making sure that drawers didn't come out or the cabinets didn't come open. Inside the cabinets, I actually had to put insulation because I have about 70 different tinctures which have glass bottles that I store the stock product in. Instead of wrapping each 70 bottles, I ended up keeping them in the cabinet and just insulating around them on top and on the bottom. My office chair, it's on rollers, so I just shoved it in between a bunch of stuff because there wasn't really anything else I could do. I also had to remove the ladder that's connected to the catwalk, and I put that in the kitchen hallway against some more stuff that was in the backyard. I took down my vacuum cleaner after I used it the one last time, taking all the stuff off the cabinets and the walls. You're gonna want to make sure that inside the office area, if you have an office area, that everything is piggybacked back to back so that nothing moves left to right or front to back. Moving on to my bedroom loft. In my bedroom loft, I had to tape my clothes cabinets. I also had to zip tie the entire thing to the wall so that it didn't shift this way. I secured it with multiple zip ties leading from one side of the wall to the other, and I also secured my side table rack here that's next to my bed so that I didn't have to unfold that and take it down. I also took the TV off the wall and put it behind this bed right here against the wall with a cushioned thing on the bottom so that it didn't damage the TV. During movement of the house, the TV was perfectly safe back there and I didn't need to put it in a box or outside of my house anywhere. I unplugged my alarm clock and I unplugged the space heater, as well as took this 10 by 8 space and shoved boxes in here so that none of the other things moved around, because I also have a side table up here, winter clothes, and I had packed a lot of the stuff that was up on my cabinet and I put those in boxes. So I also used the pillows to cushion in between all of those boxes so that everything was secure. Going straight across to my cat loft, I took everything off the shelves during my packing, but to secure everything, I had to make sure that all of the books that were in the containers were edged up against each other so that it didn't shift during movement. Moving on to the bathroom, I ended up taking off all of my decor on my walls and zip tied the cabinets together, zip tied the medicine cabinet to the wall. I zip tied my Primo water cooler, and I also zip tied my clothes, put a bunch of zip ties around them, as well as hanging over the top of it a towel just in case the item that I had in the shower didn't come tumbling out and then ruin the clothes. I also wanted to make sure that all of the stuff was off of the shower walls so that when the truck was moving that the stuff didn't fall down. I'd secured the barnyard door from the inside outside to the shower area. The kitchen, I emptied the refrigerator because it was a 12-hour drive. I zip tied the refrigerator and the freezer to the wall. I was going to take out the convection oven, but decided not to because I instead zip tied that to the wall as well. I also ended up taping the drawers in the kitchen as well as zip tying all of the cabinets in the kitchen. I put a lot of the stuff in the sink because the sink is deeper and the stuff in the middle wouldn't have shifted, and I cushioned everything with towels. On the very last day, I had to make sure that the internet was unhooked, so I unhooked all of the plugs, and then I had to take it. That was my very last step from leaving Illinois, was taking all of the internet stuff back to the internet company. Along with moving that internet stuff, I wanted to make sure that that flip down counter stayed down because during movement it stuck in the wall with a latch, and I didn't want movement of the house to break the latch. And then I also have mothballs that I have in the kitchen, and because they live in cold water and needed to survive, I put them in a baggie. Moving from the kitchen into the living area, I needed to make sure that all of the items that I had on my couch bed storage were off and secured in between all of the stuff on the floor. Now, mind you, I was taking the stuff from the backyard into the house, so we needed to lay down tarps in order for the carpets and rugs not to get dirty. I used the coats that I had on the coat rack for padding in between the backyard stuff, as well as more padding for the kitchen cabinets inside. Moving outside, my outside checklist. There's like a checklist for every single room. So outside, I had to make sure that my toilet vent was off the top of the house because it actually extends about 1.5 feet above the house, which is already at legal height for it to travel down the road. So I needed to take that off so that it still stayed within the legal limits. I also wanted the water heater unplugged, but had asked the campground owner and they said it's not necessary. But I did turn off the water heater breaker in the breaker box because if there is no water being put into the line in the hose, then the water heater being plugged in can, I believe, burn out. That is one thing I learned. You want to turn off your breaker, especially for the water heater. We had to make sure the tires were filled with air. So I have a 28x8 on a triple axle, and those tires that had been sitting there for a year, and a year in the old spot as well, had 40 pounds of pressure in each tire, and they needed 80. I made sure that the campground put air in my tires so that it was safe to drive on the road. On the day of the move, I had to have my golf cart moved. I had hired U-Ship, so they came and picked my golf cart up, and we were going to meet there. I had to unplug my golf cart, give them the battery, the key. I had to make sure that my storage was secured, so I made sure I had a lock on all of the doors, as well as made sure that my outside storage locks were actually locked and so they wouldn't come undone. I also made sure that my camera was down. I also filled my car tires with air so that I had a safe trip on the way there as well. I had to make sure that my pipes were unhooked and my electric was unhooked, as well as my sewer. So I had hired the campground in order to do that. Not only did I have to make sure that all of the piping and electric was unhooked, I had to make sure that I brought at least 7 or 8 cinder blocks in order to level in my new spot. You either want cinder blocks or wood boards, and I ended up using both because it helps with stabilizing as well. Very last things for outside, I ended up putting the step on the inside, the hitch on the inside, and my gutter thingy on the inside of the house. Basically had the campground tilt my house to the street because my house was horizontal and the 12-foot truck couldn't get between the other camper and my house. So that was the very last step that I did in my checklist, was they had to move the house for the transport people to get into the hitch in order to take my house away. And then off we went. I was told to lock my door because they weren't going to be able to get inside, and they weren't going to get inside anyway. So I locked the door and took the key with me. Another list is my car items. So I have 3 cats and I had to make sure that they were safe and secure traveling inside the car. So my to-do list for the car was making sure that the cat carriers in the front and the back were secured. I actually secured them with zip ties as well, securing them to the upper hooks. I also had a last minute to-do list when it came to doing things, say, around the house. I had to return my key to the post office. I had to make sure that I filled out a change of address forms. I kid you not, I dyed my hair before I left so that I didn't have to do it here. I washed my sheets before I left. I made sure all of my laundry was done before I left. I made sure that my refrigerator was clear. I made sure that my toilet was empty so that when I hired the guys to take off the vent at the top, that it didn't blast them with a scent of my waste. Sorry, but not sorry. I wanted to make sure that I had a full tank of gas before I left so that I could calculate my trip. I believe it was 830 miles and I get about 380 miles to a tank. So I wanted to do the calculations of only stopping 2 or 3 times. I also filled 15 or 20 gallons of water and brought that with me. I had everything prepared. There you have it. There are my checklists for my last minute move, my last minute checklists and to-do lists. I seriously suggest making a bunch of lists for every room because there are things you are going to forget. If I would have known that the light bulb was going to break again in the ceiling fan, I could have removed it, but I didn't even think about that. The littlest things can make such a big difference. If you guys like this video, please give it a big thumbs up and don't forget to hit that subscribe button below and click the notifications bell so you can receive a notification every time I post a new video, which is every Sunday. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you in the next video. In this week's video, I'm going to be sharing, before I moved, I had probably about a ton, so I just kept the